In plain English, brand archetypes are models that help you humanize your brand, making it more relatable and helping you actually intentionally make it memorable. Now, who doesn't want that? Welcome to the Master Your Business podcast, where we bring you the best in branding, marketing, and customer experience strategies. I'm Deirdre Martin, your host. And if you've been asking yourself how to level up your growing business, your marketing, your customer experience, or how to make more of an impact with your brand, this show is for you. You'll discover actionable tips and insights to help businesses just like yours gain clarity and illuminate the path to success. Train with industry experts, learn sales and marketing strategies, business and mindset hacks, and be inspired by authentic entrepreneurship stories. As your host, I'll share the no-nonsense advice that accelerated my journey from boring bank manager to industry thought leader in marketing and customer experience. Learn how I made the leap into the world of six-figure success, digital courses, keynote speaking, and co-authoring a #1 bestseller in just 1 year. Together with interviews from industry experts, this show ensures you're seen, heard, and hired by your ideal clients. Join our growing community of subscribers and let the Master Your Business podcast empower you to tackle your most significant challenges on your path to business success. Don't miss out. It's your turn to learn from the best and master your dream business. Have you ever felt like your brand is missing that something special, that magic touch that makes it unmistakably you? I know I have. Just last month as well, I spoke with a client who'd been in business for years, but really felt invisible because they'd more competitors than they ever had before. And we did some work and she discovered her brand archetype and everything changed. I'm Deirdre Martin, triple certified, award-winning international best-selling author dedicated to helping entrepreneurs like you make your first 100,000 or your first million in business. Welcome to the Master Your Business podcast. In today's episode, we'll uncover the power of brand archetypes, what they are, why knowing yours is a game changer, and how to weave it into your marketing for unstoppable growth. So stick around, my friend, because by the end of this episode, you'll have the clarity to transform your brand from bland to brilliant. So first and foremost, what are brand archetypes? So think of them as the kind of like fingerprint or DNA of your brand's personality. They're the core traits that define how your audience perceives you. Okay. So usually with brand, it's not what we say it is, it's what people say about us. So with an archetype, what that is or how it's formed is it's rooted in psychology. And a guy called Carl Jung, who's a psychologist, he came up with this theory of universal archaic symbols and images that derive from the collective unconscious. But let's skip the psychology lecture. I think I probably should have done psychology in college. I'm fascinated by it. But in plain English, brand archetypes are models that help you humanize your brand, making it more relatable and helping you actually intentionally make it memorable. Now, who doesn't want that? So there are 12 primary archetypes. A few of them are the hero, the creator, the magician, the sage, and so on. So let me kind of break this down so it's a simple and quick way to grasp this brand archetype concept. What I want you to do is just for a second, imagine your brand is a character in a story. Okay, it doesn't matter if it's a company, it doesn't matter if you're the brand, just think of your brand as a character in the story. Who might you be? Are you the rebel who will break all of the norms and break all of the rules and do all of the things that they shouldn't do? Or are you the caregiver, the person who's nurturing elderly, nurturing clients, nurturing the young, nurturing everybody around them? Is that what your brand might be? Because identifying this helps you create a consistent message. It helps you create a consistent identity and an experience, right? So if you take Nike, well-known brand as an example, Nike embody the hero archetype. inspiring you to just do it and overcome obstacles and achieve victory. Dove, Dove, they do the shampoo and the body wash. They're a caregiver brand. They promote self-love and care. Or the sage archetype, think Oprah Winfrey, David Attenborough. They're all about wisdom and knowledge and guidance. And so for you, when it comes to choosing an archetype for your brand, whether you're a personal brand or a company brand or both, each will have their own archetype. So if you have a company brand and a personal brand, each will have their own archetype. But for me, for example, my personal brand is my business brand. I trade as deirdremartin.ie. So my business brand and my company brand, my personal brand are the one and the same thing. But maybe yours is different. So what I would say with this, it's just like brand colors. Don't choose them just because it's one that you like, right? Choose one that resonates with your brand values and your ideal clients, their aspirations, and something that aligns with who you authentically are. Now, maybe you're thinking at this point, Deirdre, this sounds interesting, but why the hell should I care? Well, here's the thing. Knowing your brand archetype, it isn't just a fun exercise, because it actually is a fun exercise. It's a strategic move that can skyrocket your business. When you nail down your archetype, it makes consistency much more effortless because your messaging, your visuals, and your tone will more naturally align. And it's because you now have an awareness you didn't previously have. It helps you attract your ideal clients because people will resonate with the authenticity of your archetype. And basically what ends up happening is your tribe finds you, your tribe of who your ideal clients are, they'll find you. And it also helps you stand out from your competitors because maybe other people in your field, in your niche, in your industry, maybe they have a different archetype to yours, or maybe all of theirs is the same, but yours is the different one. So while others are generic, you can create a memorable identity if you become really intentional with this. And, I've had some fantastic guests on the show, like Andy Starr, Stephen Horahan, Barbara Monahan. They're all super people when it comes to brand. And definitely go and check out their episodes. I'll link them in the show notes. And, the conversation has come up several times that people always think that your brand is your logos and your colors and stuff like that, or having a website, but it's not. Because if you focus solely on visuals, it's kind of like dressing yourself up, but not having anywhere to go. Or, maybe dressing a mannequin and trying to pretend the mannequin is a person. It's devoid. It's devoid of personality. It's devoid of sentiment. It's devoid of purpose, everything. So without a personality, your brand becomes just another face in the crowd. So it's really freaking hard to stand out, right? Does that make sense? On the other hand, when you do nail down your archetype, it's incredibly useful. So let's imagine that, you want to do a rebrand and a style rebrand, a visual rebrand. You maybe want to change your logo. Maybe you want to change your website and your font and your colors. Well, actually knowing your archetype before you do that is really valuable exercise, because what that can allow you to do is it allows you to create a brand style that will pop, one that will be different to your competitors, and an identity that stands out, something that will resonate with your ideal clients. And so when clients come into my Business Accelerator program, for example, this is an exercise I do with them. I get them to take a short quiz, and that tells us what their dominant archetype is, because just like any personality test or quiz, if you've ever done Myers-Briggs, you're usually a blend of 4 things. And Myers-Briggs is also based on Carl Jung's psychology. So what I believe with archetypes is that usually you have a dominant one, but you'll generally have a secondary one as well. So very often, even just from the conversation that I have with clients, I can identify what their secondary one is and their primary one just on the words that they use. Because what's interesting is that when you know your archetype, you can activate it in other ways too. And when you use it strategically within your marketing, even in the words that you use, for example, let's say I'm a magician and a sage archetype. So my content tends to be geared to inspire people to transform, to get from stuck to accelerating, to go from making hundreds to making millions. So it is about that visionary, transformative sort of vision, if you like. So showing them how they can get from A to B ultimately, but that I do that through a blend of making the tough things seem easy by educating them on how they can achieve it and what it looks like when they get there, right? So it's magical, right? So even words like magical, transform, inspire, educate, they all align with my primary and secondary brand archetypes, magician and sage. And very likely, without you even realizing it, you're doing this subconsciously. And that's what I mean by sometimes when I'm having these conversations with clients, I can tell what their archetype is going to be based on the language that they use. But they might use it subconsciously in the words. But when you become conscious of it, oh my gosh, it's like a veil is lifted. Just think Neo in the Matrix. That's the best description I can give you. And that is like people have those eureka moments. So the client I mentioned earlier, she'd actually done a rebrand with somebody before, or I don't know, something to do with brand style previously. And they had done a brand archetype assessment with her, but she just said it just never fit with her. It just didn't feel right. And so when we did my quiz, she had a total turnaround. It was a complete aha moment. And the one that they had assigned to her, as opposed to letting her reflect and choosing the one that was actually her, was totally different. And even the secondary one wasn't the one that they had selected. So when she chose her own one, it was much more aligned with who she is. And even the words when we were having the conversations, I mean, I knew before she did the quiz what one she was going to come out with. So it was crazy, but it was no wonder she was struggling to connect her with her audience and her messaging wasn't working, which was why she came to me in the first place. But once we identified her brand as the magician archetype, her content shifted to sharing wisdom and insights. Her engagement took off, and so did her sales. What's interesting about this whole brand archetype concept is that your ideal clients, they actually have their own archetypes as well. Just as I said, like Myers-Briggs and personality types. And what I find is that the people who are drawn to me tend to have the same or similar archetypes to me, because the language that I use and the way that I put my content out there, it really resonates with them. And so you can align your archetype with your clients' desires as well. So let's say if you were the explorer archetype, you can appeal to your ideal client's sense of adventure. So if they're drawn to an explorer brand, you leverage that by sharing visuals and words and content that lends to that sense of adventure and navigation and exploration and, compass and direction and where they're going and that sort of thing. And uncharted territory, that kind of language is really explorer. And interestingly, I had another client where I did this with before and they'd never done the archetype quiz. But what was funny was, again, I had looked at her website. Her website had all of this language intertwined in it. And guess what car she drove? A Land Rover Explorer, right? So totally subconsciously, she did not know what her brand archetype was, but naturally it's literally ingrained in us. That was her dominant one. So it was pretty cool. And we did a lot of laughing over that, especially with the car. But what's really cool about this brand archetype thing is that when we are aware of it and we apply it, it can help drive emotional connection. And emotional connection is what can drive loyalty. It can also drive sales and all sorts of things. So I think what's important right now is for me to explain to you, well, how do you get tactical with this? How do you bring your brand archetype to life in your business and apply it so that you get results and leads and sales and all of the things and a ton of people who are loyal to your brand? So I think step one is to really firstly stop and take stock, identify your brand archetype. And a great way to do this is to reflect on your values. It's to reflect on your mission and think about where you're going in your business, who you really want to support and the problems that you want to solve. And I've actually created a free brand archetype quiz and guide to pinpoint where you fit on this. So I'll share a bit more on that in a bit. Stay tuned. But step 2 is to infuse your archetype into your messaging, your tone of voice. And so what I mean by that is when you are clear on your archetype, it might help you maybe step up in terms of whether your brand and your tone of voice needs to be more witty, maybe more authoritative or more nurturing. So for example, a jester archetype might be witty, a ruler archetype might be authoritative, and a nurturing archetype might be a caregiver. So what happens is the language, again, the words and phrases that resonate with your archetype, it allows you to really step that up in your business and for your content and attract the right people. I think step 3 is, once you're aware of your archetype, is to align your visuals. And that's where the style bit comes in, because the visuals and colors, they evoke emotions. So what's important is to look at all of the design elements that you have within your brand. Colors is one for sure, fonts is another, and layouts that match your personality type as well. It could be, if your brand is a caregiver archetype, it needs to be something that reflects that, something that's nurturing and warm and spacious and is like a giant hug. Even if it's digital, that's what I'm talking about. But it's amazing as well, like iconography really plays into this as well. So when you're designing a logo and you know what your brand archetype is, not only will you be able to create a logo that fits it, colors that can go in the logo, but also the font that goes with it and how you lay it out. Oh, seriously, it's mind-blowing. And honestly, graphic designers very often don't know about brand archetypes either, because this is a thing that relates back to brand strategy. And even when I did the brand strategy training with Level C, this wasn't something that came up. This is something that I've been working on for nearly 4 years, that I have learned about through trial and error and working through it with clients. I've read multiple books about it and it fascinates me. Like I say, maybe I should have done psychology in college. But my clients, it's like, it really, you do get that aha moment when you learn about your archetype and figure out what it is. Okay, sorry, on a tangent there. Let's come back, Deirdre. Okay, so step 4, consistency across platforms, meaning your website, your social media, emails, and all of those things. Ideally, everywhere you should have a same message. It should tell the same story. It should really kind of feel the same. And so what I recommend here is that you create a set of brand guidelines. It doesn't have to be fancy. I have a Canva version that I did years ago. I did a more recent version in the last maybe year and a half, and I have it on Notion. I used a free Notion template to create my Canva, my brand guidelines, not my Canva guidelines. So it doesn't need to be complicated. And all you need really is a simple document that outlines what your archetype is, how to activate it in your marketing, the tone of voice that you should apply in your messaging. And I've done a podcast episode previously on tone of voice, so definitely go and check that out as well, because you can align the tone of voice to the archetype when you're aware of it, and that makes your tone of voice pop even more, would you believe? And messaging and more. And there's so much that you can do once you become aware of this. And ultimately, what this is like is that this becomes your North Star for everything to do with your brand. It's the direction in which you're going. It's how you show up and it's how you make people feel, which is pretty cool. So, for example, if you're a jester archetype, your marketing might look like, humor, playful visuals, maybe some memes and things like that. One that comes to my mind is the Old Spice's quirky ads. They leave a lasting impression. My dad was an avid Old Spice wearer back in the day. But yeah, so it's fun to think about how you can apply it once you become aware of what yours is. So folks, as promised, I've got something special for you, the Brand Archetype Quiz and Guide. It's a really comprehensive resource to help you identify your brand archetype and to start applying it today. And you can download it at deirdremartin.ie brand guide. Okay, let's wrap things up. First, today, we've uncovered what brand archetypes are, the heartbeat of your brand's personality ultimately, and intentionally or otherwise, you already have one. The second thing we talked about was we explored why knowing your brand archetype is crucial for attracting ideal clients and helping you stand out. Thirdly, we dove into some actionable steps to infuse your archetype into your marketing. So do yourself a favor. I was going to say a flavor. No, do yourself a favor and don't let this become just another piece of information. Take 10 minutes today and download the brand archetype guide. Identify your archetype and then brainstorm 3 ways you can incorporate it into your marketing, like ASAP this week. Because knowing and applying your brand archetype, genuinely, it could be a game changer. It could be that something special you felt your brand was missing. It's the difference between blending in and becoming unforgettable. So, my friend, that's it. If you found value in today's episode, share it with a friend. Share it with somebody else, a colleague, or somebody who you know needs to hear this. Let's spread the knowledge and how to transform people's businesses. And don't forget to follow the Master Your Business podcast so you don't miss any future episodes packed with insights like today's. And speaking of which, next week's episode is all about how to unlock business growth with targeted LinkedIn and pay-per-click or PPC campaigns. And trust me, you really don't want to miss that. A fantastic guest on the show. So until next time, I'm Deirdre Martin, helping you master your business so you can make your mark and millions while doing it. Bye for now.